Three. Oh, welcome back to One American Baseball Podcast, your number one rated podcast on the Cleveland Guardians and the Cincinnati Reds. I'm Chris, as always, joined by my co-host Jaden, and we got a fun weekend of baseball to cover. A lot of ball to talk. The Reds played the Guardians this weekend. If you were living under a rock for that, so we're gonna talk about all of that. We're also gonna cover part of the series that happened before that. This should be a fun episode, and we're also gonna talk about a brawl that happened in single A ball between the Reds and the Guardians affiliates. Some bad blood in the affiliate system, but a pretty overall pretty chummy rivalry at the quote unquote. I say rivalry in air quotes for those listening on Spotify, but um, in A ball things got a little feisty, so we're gonna cover all that. But how you doing today, Jaden?
I'm good, Chris. Another tough stretch of baseball for my Reds. Feels like ever since the calendar flipped to May, they've been struggling, but they're doing just enough to stay over 500 somehow. And I think if you had told me, uh, I don't know, I had pretty lofty expectations going into this season, and I think April kind of skewed them even more. Um, but I think realistically, this is about where this team deserves to be. I just think they overperformed in April, so I can't be too upset in the grand scheme of things. But like you said, the Reds and Guardians played this past weekend. That was a fun series. It always is. Um, it's good banter, if nothing else. I mean, you and I get to banter back and forth. All of our friends are in our group chat. I'm the only
Yep,
Reds fan, so that can get a little dicey for me at times. But I was at the game Saturday. Ton of, I mean,
I was
I,
jealous, very
I,
jealous of those at Jacobs Field.
yeah, very beautiful night for baseball. Stadium atmosphere was really good. You know, I said it in the stands. If there's a team that I'm going to watch the Reds lose to away from home, I'd probably pick the Guardians or the Mariners because, you guys, at the end of the day, that rivalry isn't much more than just a geographical one. It's not like we're in the same league and there's really no history there. And that's kind of my complaint with MLB rivalry weekend. Kind of going off on a tangent here, but I think it's worth mentioning this that like
I agree.
the Yankees and Red Sox don't play each other on
Right.
rivalry weekend. That's
Yeah.
the biggest rivalry in baseball, one of the biggest rivalries in North American sports, and we're doing Yankees,
Yankees
Mets,
Mets,
and
which I
Red
mean,
Sox, Orioles.
that's
No, the I don't know. I don't even know who the Red Sox play. The Rays? Is it the Rays? No, that's the
oh, I
Marlins
don't
play the
know.
Rays.
I forget who it
But
was. There
that's
were some egregious ones this past, like there were like the Diamondbacks and the Rockies.
right, and the Padres play the Mariners, and they call it the Vetter Cup. And Eddie Vedder's a Cubs fan, so it's
Yeah,
like
like
um,
that's so
I
stupid.
they relied a lot, I think, on geography when they set these matchups and called it a rivalry weekend, and that makes sense from a marketing standpoint because um, I can drive up 71 and catch a Reds game at Progressive Field, or you can drive down 71 and catch a Guardians game at Great American, and same goes for like Florida and the Orioles play the Nationals. Um, but it doesn't make a ton of sense to call it. It feels like a lot of these rivalries are manufactured. Um, so you don't really get the rivalry aspect of it, which is nice when you're losing at the opposing stadium, like I was on Saturday. I never really felt like I was going to get chirped or anything, or that there was any ill intent. But that's enough of my tangent on rivalry weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on the rivalry weekend. I think that most of all, it's just a way for the MLB to make money and being geographically quote unquote close. Fans can travel and you could get kind of a 50-50 split between fans at some in some cases. But like going back to what I was saying about the Rockies and the Diamondbacks, like those teams are so far away from each other. It's like once you get to like the West Coast and like the Mountain Time Zone, it just kind of goes to the wayside. Like there's no geographical kind of correlation, and it's just the teams that are leftovers just kind of get paired up with each other, and there's no
Right.
like I mean those teams are 30 years old, so they don't have much history, so it's not their fault necessarily. But anyway, that's enough about rivalry weekend. I'll get into my Guardians. Um I guess we'll start on a positive note today. So I'm going to start back with the Angels, the sweep of the Angels, which that was a really fun series. The Guardians have been kind of scuffling up to that point. Specifically, the offense wasn't taking care of business, but the Guardians finally got some clutch hits when it mattered. I talked last week about how the Guardians left 25 men on base in a 2 game span, and as we were recording. The Guardians had beat the Angels 7-2 the last night that we recorded, and they were kind of coming out of that slump with runners in scoring position, which that's even though it's extremely frustrating, the whole runners in scoring position thing, it's not a very sustainable thing to do. Like if you're getting runners on base, then statistically speaking, you're gonna get those runners home at some point. The Guardians just weren't doing it for like an entire series, and it drove me crazy. But yeah, they finally got some offense, some runs across, which was good. Um, Funny enough, Alek Manoah threw 5 shutout innings that game, and he walked 5 batters, and he struck out 2, I believe. So that was a really, really weird stat line. He was also averaging about 87 miles an hour on his fastball, which in his last outing before he got sent down, he was averaging about 84 miles an hour on his fastball. So that's pretty rough if you're Alek Manoah. And then moving on to game two, you had 4 shutout innings from Slade, and then you had 5 innings of 2 run ball from the bullpen. Guardians won 3-2 that game. I think the biggest takeaway from this game was Cade Smith. Like this was really the first outing that we saw where he was just back to his completely dominant self. So that was really good to see. He had a 4-out save, and yeah, he looks like one of the best relievers in baseball again. And since that outing, he's been absolutely untouchable. So he's been throwing about 99, which he hadn't really gotten up that high. But he said like in an interview or something, he made a mechanical adjustment. So um, definitely good to see there. And then moving on to game three of that Angels series, you had Parker Messick throwing 6 and 2/3 innings, 2 runs allowed. He didn't really have his best stuff early on, and the Guardians got off to an early deficit that game. But he battled, he fought, and he managed to get into the seventh inning, which that's really all he could ask for. He gave the team a chance to win, and they ended up coming back and winning 4-2. Um, and yeah, Angel Martinez had a leadoff homer that game. He's been really, really good. He won American League Player of the Week. So shout out to Angel Martinez. I was not on the Martinez bandwagon just because of how streaky he is, and he's still pretty streaky, but the valleys are definitely a lot shorter than they used to be. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from Martinez so far this season. And then moving on to the Ohio Cup Series, my thoughts on it. I mean, it was a really, really frustrating game one. The Guardians should have swept that series. The Guardians walked 8 times in the game one, 7-6 loss, and it was kind of more of the same. They couldn't get runners home when they got into scoring position, and mainly early in the game, they blew a lot of opportunities against who was it? Was it Chris Paddock who
Andrew Abbott got the start
Andrew
Friday
Abbott?
night.
That's okay. Yeah, Andrew Abbott. They couldn't really get any rallies going against Andrew Abbott, which I mean credit to Abbott. I mean he has a good track record and he's been fine this year. So he was probably the best pitcher that the Guardians faced all weekend. But the bullpen, it was just kind of the classic Reds bullpen. They were walking a bunch of guys. Um, Pretty solid start from Tanner Bybee. He pitched 6 and 2/3 innings of 3-run ball. And we actually gave him some run support, but it wasn't until later in the game when we finally got some runs across. And then, Peyton Paulette gave up 3 runs. And I think it's tough with Paulette because if we let him go, then we have to give him back to the White Sox since he was a Rule 5 pick. But I just can't really trust Paulette in any situation at this point. I mean, he needs to be specifically like a mop-up guy in blowouts. Um, I mean, yeah, he's gotten teed off in his on his last couple outings. So I mean, I like his stuff, but he got roughed up this game. And then moving on to game two, um, very fun 2 game stretch for Guardians fans. They won 7-4 in game two. It was kind of more of the same Reds bullpen that they've been on lately. The Reds bullpen walked 6 guys, and thank goodness the Guardians finally capitalized off of those walks. They were down 4-2, and then they scored 5 unanswered runs, and then you had another home run from Angel Martinez, which pretty much put the nail in the coffin for the Reds that game. So that was a good game. It was good to get 7 runs across. That was the first game where Stephen Kwan had been moved down in the order. So he was batting sixth that game, and the offense looks so much better. Like I don't think it was a coincidence that Stephen Kwan got moved down. I've been saying this for weeks now. We needed to move Stephen Kwan down, and they waited a little bit longer than I had hoped for, but I'm glad they finally did it. And what I tell them what I tell you guys, it paid off. So, and then moving on to yesterday's game, the 10-3 win. That was a really fun game. 6 home runs as a team. That was the most as a team by or since I believe like 2013. So it's been quite a while. I mean, you're leaving out some really good Indians teams that had some of the best offenses in baseball in that 2016 to 2019 run, and they never hit 6 home runs in a single game. So that was really cool to see. You had 2 home runs from Kyle Manzardo, which it's good to see him finally get going. You had Jose Ramirez hit a home run at the end of the game, which that was cool to see as well. Jose Ramirez he's been getting hot lately, and that's I'll talk about him a little bit more in a few minutes, but that was really nice to see. And then a really solid start from Gavin Williams. 6 innings pitched, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. I think the biggest takeaway from this outing was he didn't walk anybody, and like I said before, when he's at his best, he walks like maybe 1 to 2 batters at the most per outing. So that was great to see. He had a little bit more velo on his pitches as well because he had a week of rest. So that was great to see. So yeah, since Stephen Kwan has been moved down the lineup, the Guardians have been averaging 8.5 runs per game. Um, Before Stephen Kwan was moved down, I would see Brian Rocchio, and then it's not nothing against him, but like I would cringe because I knew that Stephen Kwan was on deck and the lineup was gonna. Usually that's a positive thing when the lineup gets turned over, but for the Guardians this entire season that has not been the case, and it just feels like a black hole is on deck. So that was great to move him down. Schneemann has been the leadoff hitter in Kwan's stead so far. He did a nice job the first couple games. I'm watching the game in the background right now. I'm not sure who's leading off, quite frankly, but um, I believe Kwan is still down the order. But Kwan already seems much more comfortable at the plate in the sixth spot where he has more opportunity to drive in runs in the six hole, and popping the ball up and hitting a lot of fly balls like he has been, that can potentially lead to maybe like a fringe sacrifice fly every once in a while. So that's a lot more productive than him just popping out with nobody on base. And he's been starting to hit some more line drives. So that's been a positive sign, but I think for Quan it's just a confidence thing. He gets down in the count, and then it's really hard for him uh, to come back from that. So you don't see him hitting the ball hard much because he doesn't get much to hit. And his at bat quality has gone down because he has been proven to chase balls out of the zone a little bit more this year. So um, hopefully it'll be a good reset for Quan, and he'll turn back into a more effective hitter. Um, but I think my biggest takeaway from this week is that the lineup is just so much deeper than last year. I mean, you had like 4 guys who you really like in the lineup uh before Ramirez and Manzardo got things going. And then you add Bazana into that mix. I mean, Bazana I think should be leading off. I've said that before, but I still think he should be leading off instead of like a Schneemann or a Martinez or someone like that. he's just such a pain in the neck to pitch to. He works the count. He has an on base percentage of almost 400 or over 400, and his batting average is sitting around 230, and his expected batting average is about 50 points higher than it is his actual batting averages. So like if you factor in the lack of luck that he's had at the plate combined with the amount of walks that he takes, I mean, his on base percentage could be well over 400, maybe even closer to 450. So, um, but yeah, you have like DeLauder, Martinez, Schneemann, and Rocchio who have been killing it all year. They've exceeded expectations, all four of them. And now you're adding into the mix Ramirez and Manzardo starting to get things going. I mean, that all of a sudden that's not too bad of a lineup. Like you have that's really like six, like I mean, like seven, yeah, 7 or 8 guys in the lineup feel pretty good about. And then, I could see this offense being average to above average over an extended period of time if Quan and or sorry, if Ramirez and Manzardo continue to keep things going, which Ramirez especially has shown a lot of positive signs. He had his home run. He's been hitting a lot more line drives, been pulling the ball a lot more. Um, so that's been really nice to see. Um, and then, Brian Rocchio with 26 RBIs and 9 hole is something I want to point out as well, which is second on the team. I mean, Rocchio was on pace for an 80 RBI season and five wins above replacement. So, I mean, he's turning into one of the better shortstops in baseball. So, um, a lot of exciting things on the offensive front. There's some bullpen news I want to cover as well. Excuse me a second. But yeah, there's some bullpen news I want to cover as well. So the first thing is kind of old, which I don't think I got to this last episode, but Connor Brogdon got DFA'd, and then Franco Alman got called up, which Franco Alman for me is a really exciting prospect. He had a couple of outings where, he looks pretty exciting. He was tossing about 97, 98. I mean, he's very tall, gets a lot of extensions, so his 97, 98 fastball plays up, and then he has a pretty decent sweeper on top of that. So um, he's allowed one earned run in 2 2/3 innings pitched, and then he got sent down because it was a 13 game and 13-day stretch. Cody Hoyer got brought up just to kind of save the bullpen a little bit. So Hoyer in 2 innings pitched has allowed one run. It was just a little junk outing yesterday when the Guardians were up big. He looks more like a Matt Fester, like a Connor Brogdon type. But he's not too bad. Kind of a quad A guy. And then another piece of news, I believe this happened yesterday. Andrew Walters got activated from the injured list and he got optioned to AAA. So, um, Guardians are giving him a little bit more time to ramp up in AAA. He had lat surgery last year. So he's another piece that I think can be huge for this Guardians bullpen going forward in the season, maybe in like a seventh, eighth, ninth inning role. And then last piece of news I have today is Sean Armstrong getting activated and then Cody Hoyer getting sent down as the corresponding move. So Sean Armstrong's been a little disappointing this year. Hopefully the injury was kind of holding him back a little bit, and he's healthy now and is going to be a little bit more effective. I think his command was definitely lacking, so we'll see if that time off helped him. But um, yeah, this team is going to have a bit of a predicament when they eventually bring Andrew Walters back up because, like I said about Peyton Paulette, you can't move him, you can't send him down. Um, and then I don't know. I think Festa might be the first one to go. I think it's gonna be tough because he, he's effective. Like he does one of two things. He's slams the door, um, or he gives up a huge home run, and it seems like there's no in between. So his ERA is 4.87, but Baseball Savant actually has his expected ERA being 350. And he's a lot of red on his Baseball Savant as well. He induces soft contact. Um, And yeah, it shows that he's been a little bit unlucky this year, just with where the ball has been hit. So, um, last thing I wanted to cover was Jose Ramirez leading all of baseball with 20 stolen bases. I mean, he's really gotten it going with the stolen bases this year, and you would think with the slow start that he's gotten off to, with the 229 batting average, his on base percentage will be way down, but his on base percentage is actually pretty even with how it has been throughout his career. He has a 358 on base percentage this point. Um, so he's been getting on base about the same at the same rate that he has been his whole career. But 20 steals, he's on pace for almost 70 stolen bases this year. His career high is 44 from last year. So he's really unlocked something in the last couple of seasons where he's just been able to steal bases almost at will. I think that Josh Naylor kind of had like he kind of set a trend in baseball where a lot of slow guys can steal a bunch of bags. And if you figure out like the strategy behind it, which Jose is one of the smartest people and like smartest players in baseball, he's kind of figured out how to steal bases and like how like what each pitcher does. So that's been really electric, even though he hasn't really been doing much at the plate. He makes a lot of things happen on the base paths. So I'm excited to see where that goes when he actually starts swinging the bat a little bit better, which he already has been. So we could be seeing a pretty crazy stolen base total from Jose this season. So exciting stuff in Guardians country. There obviously there are some negatives, but I'm not going to really get into those today. So that's all I have for Guardians.
Yeah, you know, uh, because we played each other this weekend, it's bad times in Reds country, but you can thank us if Manzardo and Ramirez really start to get going. You can always thank the old Cincinnati Reds for um, giving you a get right game, we'll call it. Feels like we're the get right team for a lot of other teams right now. And then something else that I noticed while I was watching this weekend, I don't, I'm usually watching Reds baseball, so I'm not really watching the Guardians games, but like Travis Bazana is just such a pesky at bat. He had so many at bats where he saw, eight, nine, even double digit pitches. That's really impressive from a rookie. Guys like rookies typically aren't seeing that many pitches. They're either too over aggressive or they don't have the bat to ball skills yet. Um, that's really impressive. And yeah, I think I would have to agree with your assessment that he should be batting leadoff for the Guardians at this point. Things can always change. He's a rookie, but right now, I think you play the hot hand. You play the fact that he's giving you at bats like that, and you let him bat leadoff.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the Guardians kind of sheltering him from the leadoff spot. He played for Team Australia and was basically the team captain at 23 years old. So I think that he is pretty well set up to be like in a leadership role and actually have a lot of effect on the game. And I don't think that moving him to the top of the order is really going to affect that very much. He has a lot of he's very mature, a lot of maturity for a rookie. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll get into my Reds. Two frustrating series back to back. Um, First was the National Series. We were embarrassed in game one. Brady Singer went 3.2 innings, allowed three home runs. Overall, Reds pitching walked 10 guys. So that's been the story of Reds pitching for most of May has been the walks, and it's um it's continued for pretty much the whole month. In game two, the pitching failed us again. We jumped out to a 5-0 lead in the first inning, and Nick Lodolo had given it all back by the third inning. I think it's pretty obvious watching that game that Nick Lodolo wasn't ready to be pitching in the big leagues yet. He probably should have still been on a rehab assignment. But because of all the injuries to the Red staff, he sort of had to be rushed back, and he and the Reds are paying the price right now, or did in that game, because he wasn't ready to pitch in a big league setting yet, I don't think. And he allowed the Nationals right back into a game where they had absolutely no momentum after one inning of baseball. And that's a game the Reds should have easily won because even after they give up those 5 runs and lose that 5-0 lead, they battle back and they have the winning run on second with no outs in both the eighth and ninth innings, and both times they fail to score a guy after a leadoff double. Dane Myers popped up a bunt to the pitcher in the ninth inning that would have, in theory, advanced Matt McLean to third base. And then Ellie hit a ball right after that at bat that would have been a walk-off sac fly if the bunt had been successful. Uh, so that's incredibly frustrating. You would at least hope that your guys in the majors can, you know, lay down a bunt. But I guess that's not the case anymore. And then Tony Santillan gave up yet another home run in extras as the Reds lose that game. So Tony's struggles continue out of the bullpen. And then finally in game 3, the team sort of showed up. The Reds won 15-1. Chase Burns went 6 innings of shutout baseball. You know, Chase Burns, he looks like the real deal right now, and he's really stepped up for this Reds rotation that desperately needs a guy to step up and provide some quality innings and some quality games. His season ERA is down to 1.87. That fastball is so good at the top of the zone, and his slider is so gross comparatively. So really, really good stuff from Chase Burns to start this season. And then story of May, the pitching continues to terrorize this team as we go up to Cleveland. We won game 1. Like Chris said, that's a game we should have lost. The bullpen tried their hardest to give that game away, but ultimately they fail in their goal of a Reds loss. Reds were up 6-1. Graham Ashcraft and Brock Burke came out of the pen and walked the farm. We end up winning the game by a run. Brock Burke gave up a bases loaded walk in that disaster of an inning. The Reds have walked a guy 17 times with the bases loaded this season. That's the most in a season since 2021. The most the Reds have done in um, I for at least 50 years, based on what they've said on tonight's broadcast while I was watching, is 18, and that was in 2003. So we have walked a guy 17 times with the bases loaded, and it is currently May 18th, and we're heading into the fifth inning of tonight's game. So we could tie our season record for most walks with the bases loaded here very soon. Uh, and I don't expect that trend to slow down or completely stop anytime soon with this Reds team. But I do want to shout out TJ Antone for coming in and picking up the save. He's battled back. I've already covered it. He's battled back from 3 Tommy John surgeries. So really cool for him to get back on a major league mound and then record a save in the majors. And honestly, he might be the only guy in the bullpen that I trust currently. He feels like the only, aside from Pierce Johnson, who Pierce Johnson is not a high leverage guy. He's like a sixth inning guy where it's a couple run game one way or another, and you don't want to, either give up a bunch of runs or let the other team score a bunch of runs. But Antone and Pierce Johnson are like the only two guys who know how to put a ball in the strike zone for this Reds bullpen. And I think the most frustrating part of this game is the Reds are up 5 runs. You like a solo shot can't hurt you. A 2-run shot can't even hurt you. Just put the ball in the zone, make them hit the baseball. Graham Ashcraft throws a 100-mile-an-hour cutter and a 93-mile-an-hour slider. Put it in the zone. And I know it's harder than just saying that. I understand that. But challenge these guys. The Guardians offense, aside from yesterday, they weren't world beaters up to yesterday. If you're throwing a 99-mile-an-hour cutter, put it in the zone and make them hit it. You're up 5 runs. They literally cannot beat you. Not even with a grand slam, they don't take the lead. So that was really frustrating. Thankfully on Saturday, the bullpen did get the job done and blew it for the Reds, because that's what they seem to want to do most nights. Chris Paddock started that game for the Reds, so I'm going to touch on that pickup. We picked him up after he was DFA'd by the Marlins. He started 6 games in Miami with a 7.63 ERA. He gets decent chase and doesn't really walk guys, so that's more than you can say for most of this Reds pitching staff. The expected ERA is 4.22, so maybe getting a little unlucky as well with the ERA. And he has 6 pitches, so he can throw the kitchen sink at you. And Saturday, I thought he was really, really good. He went 5 innings of 2-run ball. He looked pretty good. I was impressed with how the outing went, given how bad it was for him in Miami. The Reds end up losing this, and I kind of had it penciled in as a loss. from the jump with Paddock on the mound, but it was not Chris Paddock's fault that the Reds lost that game. He honestly probably could have gone longer, but he was pulled. I think Tito gave the reason that, he hadn't pitched since May 6th or something, so they didn't want him to go out there and go too long. I think that's kind of nonsense. I think if a guy's rolling like that, you ride him until he tells you he needs to come out, basically, especially with the way this bullpen has been. And then you covered it. The bullpen came in and gave up 4 runs, and each guy that came in walked at least one batter. So, like you said, story of the Reds bullpen this month is walks, and it was no different in game 2 of that Guardian series. And then in game 3, Brady Singer kind of continued to prove to me that he really has no business being on a major league mound right now. He gets shelled again, 5 earned runs in 4 innings, gave up 3 home runs. He's allowed a multi-home run game in 4 of his last 5 starts. The expected ERA is 6.06, so it's not even like he's getting unlucky. He's not getting chase or whiff, 30th percentile in both on Savant. He's 7th percentile in barrel percent, 23rd percentile in hard hit percent. And the sort of telling statistic is that the slider is getting hit a lot harder this season than the last season, and he's throwing it more for some reason. I dove into some of the break statistics that Savant has, and I couldn't really find much of a reason for why it's not working. It's breaking sort of at about the same rate. So, I don't really know why it's getting hit so much harder, which is then it starts to get concerning. I mean, if you can find something in the break pattern, it's not breaking as much vertically or horizontally, and guys are seeing it better because of that, or it's just spinning up there. That's something that he can work on. If it's just getting hard and it's the same pitch it was, if it's just getting hit hard and it's the same pitch it was last year, that's when it starts to get worrying, and that's where we're at. And the thing with Brady Singer when they brought him in was like, yeah, he's gonna put up like a 4 ERA, he's gonna be a 5 starter, but hey, he's gonna eat innings, he's gonna eat innings. His last 5 starts, he's gone 5.1, 3.1, 6, 3.2, and 4 innings. So he's not really eating innings either at this point. He's been incredibly frustrating to start the season, but we don't have any pitching depth. We have no one to go to, so we have to run him out there every 5 days. And I mean, he's throwing a slider that's just finding barrels. His cutter just spins up there. And if he throws it to a lefty, it's like he's just cutting it right into their barrel. The sinker hasn't really played much. He hasn't looked good at all to start the season. And then the bullpen continued the home run derby yesterday. Every Reds pitcher that came into the game allowed a home run yesterday. So it was every Reds pitcher that came into the game allowed a walk on Saturday, and on Sunday, every Reds pitcher that came into the game allowed a home run. On that Guardian series, the Reds bullpen pitched 11 innings. They gave up 13 hits, 14 earned runs, 14 walks, and 4 home runs. That's good for an ERA of 11.45 and a whip of 2.45. So that's really, really bad from any pitching core. It's especially bad from your bullpen, who you're counting on to sort of bolt down games where you have the lead or keep games close. So the Reds have got a bullpen problem. I think that was pretty unexpected. I thought after April, in April, the bullpen looked like they could beat any bullpen in baseball. And ever since the calendar flipped, it's just been ugly for the Reds bullpen. One thing I do want to touch on, this isn't so much a weekly takeaway as it is just, my frustration with the Reds, and I need a place to vent. And this podcast does that for me. It's just how much money this team is lighting on fire. For as much as this ownership and this front office want to cry poor and they want to say, oh, we can't spend, which is a lie. They can spend. Everybody that owns a Major League Baseball team is a billionaire. They can front a couple $1 million to put a winning product out there on the field. They just like to cry poor because they don't want to spend money. Um, as much as they don't want to spend money, they also can't figure out how to spend money smartly. And that's what the Guardians do. That's what the Brewers do. That's what successful smart market teams do is they don't spend stupid money. They spend smart money, and the Reds spend stupid money. Brian Hayes is my first example of this. He's under contract until 2029. It's a club option in 2030. He's owed 30 million in total until the club option. I think he's making 7 or 8 million this year, and it's going to be near impossible to offload this contract unless we eat some of the money and we're expecting a half bag of Funyuns in return. And I'm not talking like a full bag of Funyuns either. I'm talking like the gas station already snack size bag of Funyuns, and then it's already half eaten and it's already half air to begin with. So you've really got like a quarter bag of Funyuns, and Funyuns suck. So, and that's paying some of the money we still owe Brian Hayes. And that's the only way I think any team in baseball would take this contract. I really don't know how or why the Reds were stupid enough to let the Pirates get away with this. It's terrible to take this trade any which way you draw it up, to let a division rival offload this contract onto you. It's that's a fireable offense in and of itself. And I've got, I think, four or five more guys to cover in this lighting money on fire segment. Brian Hayes is slashing 150, 207, 239. He's got a 23 OPS plus. He's worth a zero point 0.1 WAR, and that's only because of his defense. Um, it's it might go down as one of the worst contracts in Reds history, and we've had a lot of terrible contracts. Um, Brady Singer is my next guy. He's a free agent next year, thank God. He's making 12.75 million this year though. He's got a 6.26 ERA, a 1.696 whip. Um, the hits per nine and home runs per nine have both jumped to career highs, and the strikeouts per nines are at an all-time career low. And like I said, the Reds sadly have to rely on him with where the pitching depth is currently, and there's not much we can do. Um, to get rid of him. You hope when Hunter Green comes back, he gets bumped, and hopefully Rhett Lauder comes back sooner than Hunter Green, and he's bumped even sooner. Emilio Pagan is another guy. He's got a player option for next season. He's making 10 million across the 2 years of this contract, so he's making 20 million total. Right now, he's got a 6.43 ERA, 1.429 WHIP. The hits per nine, home runs per nine, and walks per nine are all up from last season. And much like Brady Singer, the strikeouts per nine are at a career low, and he's currently hurt. So he's not even doing anything for the Reds at this current juncture. Jose Trevino, he's under contract until 2028 with a club option in the last year. He'll make 5.25 million the next 2 years, and the option is for 6.5 million. He's slashing 138, 167, 172. His OPS plus is somehow worse than Brian Hayes is at -6. Yes, OPS plus can go into the negatives, and Jose Trevino is currently doing that, and he's worth -0.2 WAR. The only value that he really provides um, on the field is his catching defense, but he's a veteran locker room voice, and that's kind of what you hope for in a lot of your backup catchers. But you'd want him to play maybe at least a little bit better than this. This is like Austin Hedges bad. No offense to Austin Hedges. Um, he leads a lot of teams to World Series and playoff runs, and he's hitting the ball well to start this season. We narrowly avoided a Tyler Stevenson contract extension. We offered him one, and thankfully he was dumb enough to turn it down because I don't know if he'll be playing Major League Baseball once he becomes a free agent. He's slashing 174, 271, 287. He's got a 54 OPS plus, -0.1 WAR, and unlike Jose Trevino, he provides no plus value as a defender at catcher. Literally, the only thing he can do as a catcher is make good ABS challenges. Um, so maybe with ABS, Tyler Stevenson has a hope to stay in the league, but thank God the Reds did not extend him because that would have been another disaster contract for this team. And then, this is the real kicker. This is the one that the ace up my sleeve that I've been holding on to for this whole segment. You guys remember Jamer Candelario? You remember that stud? We're paying him 16 million this year to play AAA ball for the Los Angeles Angels. He's playing for the Salt Lake City Bees and getting paid 16 million by the Cincinnati Reds, professional baseball franchise, to do that. So I added it up. This year alone, we are paying $35 million for -1.0 WAR across all these players, and another 16 million for some run to rot and AAA for another franchise that is run by idiots. I looked at it. Kyle Schwarber's making 30 million this year. We could have had Kyle Schwarber for the money we're wasting on Brady Singer, Brian Hayes, Jose Trevino, and Emilio Pagan. And, we only had to if we had not paid Jamer Candelario, we would only have to pony up 14 million for Kyle Schwarber this year. So, yeah, this Reds front office is terrible, and I think any other front office that pulled these stunts um, would be decimated by. I mean, this is a front office that by any serious organization that spent money this stupidly and continues to do it. I mean, let's not forget the Mike Moustakas disaster. Thankfully, we're off the hook from that, but that was this front office as well. Um, they wouldn't be allowed to run a baseball team anymore, but Nick Krall can get away with it. And I think it's, I think the sentiment from a lot of Reds fans, and I'm starting to lean that way too, is that it's because he just bows down to this ownership group. He doesn't really ask for any help. He doesn't ask for wiggle room in the budget. He says, well, this is what we've got to play with. And so I'm going to try and do my best. And he does. If this is his best, he should be fired anyway. But, I think the reason that he's allowed to stick around for so long is because he doesn't question the ownership group. And because the ownership group doesn't want to spend money and he doesn't question it, they can just get away with torturing a franchise like this. And it's really sad for baseball. It's really sad for Cincinnati Reds fans. This is the oldest professional franchise in baseball, and they haven't had success. They haven't won a playoff series since 1995. They've had limited success since then. It's just, as you can tell, I'm really frustrated. And Nick Krall always pulls like the one good move in off season or trade deadline. It was Miguel Andujar last year's trade deadline, and this year it's Nate Lowe and JJ Bleday. But for every one good move, there are, all of those things that I just talked about, and it's pretty disastrous, I think. Um, and then my last bit is just about this Philadelphia Phillies series that we're currently playing in. It was Nick Lodolo versus Andrew Painter tonight. We're currently in the top of the sixth. It's tied 2-2. Andrew Painter is a rookie that the Reds haven't seen, but he has a 6.21 ERA on the season. He's still pitching here in the top of the sixth and has only allowed 2 runs. So good outing for him. Good outing for Nick Lodolo, though, too. Good bounce back outing. Um, I kind of had tonight as like, can Lodolo sort of find himself after that national series? And it's been a good outing for him. Tomorrow it's Chase Burns versus Jesus Luzardo. Uh, Luzardo has struggled to start the year. He has a 5.07 ERA, and many Reds have seen him well in their careers. It'll be interesting to see. I think, can Chase Burns continue to succeed against this Phillies lineup? Because it's a lot of power versus power matchups. He's up there throwing 99, 98. And this is a Phillies team that has a lot of power. So he's supplying power, and it's a very aggressive, free swinging, powerful lineup. So it'll be interesting to see if he can find success against them. And then Wednesday, it's Andrew Abbott versus Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola has a 5.91 ERA, and like Luzardo, many Reds have hit him well. Andrew Abbott seems to have turned a corner recently, but the Phillies did hit him hard last season. So that'll be an interesting one to watch as well. Good news for the Reds. They're missing Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler, so they really need to take advantage of the fact that they're missing the two best arms that this Phillies rotation has to offer. Um, the Phillies really struggled early, but they've come on as of late after firing their manager, which we're going to talk about in the Around the League segment. Um, I'm wondering if the Reds can take advantage of not seeing, Wheeler and Sanchez and seeing the weaker part of their pitching staff and getting starts from three of their best pitchers to find a way to take the series and build some positive momentum. I think realistically, the Reds win one game this series at most, but if they can take the series, it's a real opportunity to sort of right the ship. If they can go into Citizens Bank and take a series against a scorching hot team, but yeah, I don't have much hope for that, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the Reds had such a bad track record with those contracts. I knew it wasn't pretty, but yeah, those frustrations are definitely pretty valid,
Yeah,
especially with the like not to rub it in, but I don't remember the last. I think like maybe Mike Zunino was the last like really bad Guardians free agent signing, but even then that
right.
was a pretty low, wasn't a very lucrative deal. So
Yeah, yeah.
um
I mean, it's when you lay it all out there and you look at it like that, it really shows you how little I think this franchise, this not this franchise, but this current ownership group and this current front office value winning. I think they value making money. I think they value not breaking the bank, and I don't really think they value winning. And I think when you lay it out like I kind of just did, you get that picture a little more clearly.
Yeah, the Reds spend mo more money than the Guardians, but it obviously does not go to the right places.
Yeah.
But let's move on to our around the league segment. First, we have a brawl to talk about in single A ball, as I mentioned earlier. So you're in Dayton, Ohio. You have the Lake County Captains in town, Guardians single A affiliate, against the Dayton Dragons, the Cincinnati Reds single A affiliate. So it's ninth inning. The Dragons are up to bat, and their batter gets hit by a pitch. Um, Obvious hit by pitch, but it was called a foul ball. And in single A, you're not allowed to challenge that for some reason. So the call couldn't be overturned. So the Dragons third base coach got ejected, got all hot at the umpire. It was a pretty awesome ejection to watch. And then later that at bat, their batter strikes out, and he also started crying. He cried in the middle of that at bat. And then once that batter struck out, the captain's pitcher started taunting and walking towards the Dragons dugout, which cleared the benches. Bunch of pushing and shoving. Eventually, the dust gets settled. The captain's pitcher gets ejected. You move on, bring a new pitcher in, and then that new pitcher hits the Dragons' next hitter on the first pitch. So then the second pitcher gets ejected. Now, everything I just mentioned is on video. I wasn't able to find any video of the second batter getting plunked, unfortunately. But going off what I read in a couple articles, there were multiple hitters that were multiple batters that were hit in that inning. And I would wager that there was another bench clearing after that. I think that's what happened, but I don't quote me on that. But and that's rivalry weekend for you. Not not the not the chummy rivalry in the MLB.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's probably pretty rare that single A brawls um make sort of not national baseball headlines, but it's circulating on social media and yeah, pretty wild sequence just kind of start to finish with the blown hit by pitch call. The Dragons batter crying. Don't know if you really love to see that as a Reds fan. Maybe I mean I'm sure it hurts. And I'm sure it's
It hit his elbow
frustrating, but
guard. Like, okay,
yeah,
getting hit by 95-mile-an-hour fastball, like that's never fun. And
right.
I sympathize with the guy, but I don't know. There's just a certain standard you should probably uphold. You should
As a
probably shouldn't be
professional ball
crying
player.
from pain unless you're you have a career-ending injury or something. That's my take
Yeah.
on it. But
Yeah, but I I don't know. The captain's pitcher was really letting the dugout have it. So I think it's a warranted brawl, and I'm all for baseball fights. I love baseball fights, so I was happy to see a little bit of fire from my single A club. Also, just want to mention that Nick Lodolo just gave up a solo shot to Alec Boehm, so the Reds are down a run in the bottom of the sixth. Just to give an update on that game. So probably will be another loss for my Reds tonight, but I'm getting pretty good at accepting those here recently. So at least there's that, I guess. I'm growing as a person thanks to this terrible Reds baseball team. Um, but back to this brawl. Yeah, just
yeah,
wild. I like to see it fire.
yeah.
I like to see the fire from my young guns.
Yeah, I definitely am on the Dayton Dragons side with this.
Yeah,
That was completely out of line for the captains to conduct themselves like that, especially with that first pitcher. Like, I mean, it's fine to like the thing is the umpire obviously got that wrong. And
right.
like the pitcher didn't really do anything cool. Like the batter
Yeah,
was
you
already in a compromised state and he just struck him out. Like, I don't know, that's not that cool. to
Yeah, and if you want to get fired up after a strikeout, do it walking towards your own dugout coming off
yeah,
the field. If you do it to the opponent's dugout, like you're kind of asking for a fight at that point.
yeah, you are. Yeah. So that's one of the more exciting things that I've ever seen come out of single A. Um
For sure.
next thing unless you have anything else on that, next thing
I do not.
we have to talk about is the Philadelphia Phillies. That we haven't talked about them yet this year, but they're kind of sneaky again. And I never thought I'd call the Phillies sneaky just because they have so many big names on their roster, but they were 9-19 with Rob Thompson as manager, and that was a shocking start for the Phillies. He got fired, and then Don Mattingly took over, which he has a very good track record. Sorry, the Guardians, something just happened with the Guardians game.
No, you're
Anyway,
good.
yeah, the Phillies are 15-4 since Don Mattingly took over. So that's a pretty crazy turnaround. And then Kyle Schwarber has also hit 20 home runs this year, which that man might hit he he might hit 60 this year. I think 60 is within the realm of possibility.
I
So
would definitely have to agree. Yeah, I mean I'm watching this Phillies ball club right now. It's a lineup that I don't think anyone expected to struggle. Like it's a team that I don't think anyone expected to struggle as bad as they did to start the season. And I mean they're red hot right now. And good for Don Mattingly. That's a guy that's been in baseball for a really long time. He's never won a World Series. He was got within a game, an inning really last year with the Blue Jays. Um, so he gets this opportunity and it's going well for him, which you're excited to see that for Don Mattingly. It's a Phillies team that is when my Reds aren't playing them, they're likable. So I'm never really rooting against them as far as NL East clubs go. It's them or the Marlins, I guess, or the Nationals that I would want to see win that division, but the Nationals probably aren't going to do much winning. So I say as they take a series off of my Reds last week. But yeah, it's been it was shockingly bad to start for the Phillies, and now it's kind of shockingly good. So we'll see if they even out or if they're just kind of a streaky team this year.
yeah, Don Mattingly is like you said, he's an easy guy to cheer for. He's been in the like involved with an MLB team in some capacity for I think like something like 45 years.
Yeah.
And he's never won a World Series, which there's only a handful of teams in baseball that have a 45 plus year World Series drought. So when you put it that way, I mean that's pretty crazy that Mattingly has never won a World Series. And
Right.
he, like you said, I mean he was in Game 7 of the World Series last year. He managed the Dodgers for a while, and they never won with him as manager. So that's a guy you want to see get a ring by the end of his career.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we
Sort of
have. Go
just
ahead.
sort of like a Dusty Baker type, like a guy that
Yeah.
you want him to get a ring because he's paid his dues and he deserves one. Sadly, Dusty got his with the Astros, but
Yeah,
if Don were to get his with the Phillies, that'd be I think a more likable team to do it with.
I agree. Yeah, but that's all we have for this episode of One American Baseball Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to give us 5 stars on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube, and comment down below if you thought that anything, if you have any agreements, disagreements, any questions you have in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. So we will talk to you next week in episode 57.
Yeah, see ya.